October is upon us, which means I'm once again going to share my attempts at Inktober with you, but this year with a couple of different changes. Welcome back, unless you're new here, in which case my name is Larissa. I'm a nerdy freelance artist who loves Disney and drinks way too much tea, and this is my third year attempting the Inktober challenge. Inktober is an annual challenge for artists of all levels. Every year, the creator puts out a list of one-word prompts for each day in October. The original concept for Inktober is that for each of those one-word prompts, you will do a pen and ink illustration. The main goals are A, to create something every day, no matter what, to really stretch your artistic muscles, as well as by working in pen and ink. That's a very permanent medium. You can't really go back and make changes to that, and since your goal is to create something every day, you don't really have the time and energy really to keep reworking something over and over and over again. So it's all about an artist just making something for the sake of making something and being okay with a less than perfect end product. As I said, this is my third year attempting the challenge. The first time I tried it was in 2018, and my main goal was just to make something every day, and I was sticking with the given prompts as well as with the pen and ink medium. And I think I did pretty well that year. I only missed I think 2 days, but considering I was in the hospital for an emergency appendectomy, I think that's a pretty good excuse. Last year for 2019, I also decided to stick with the given prompts and with using the pen and ink medium, but I gave myself the added challenge of working solely with Disney projects. And I did manage last year to create all prompts, and now that I have accomplished doing all 31 prompts as given in the appropriate medium with an added challenge, I've decided to change things up a little bit this year and kind of make it my own. A lot of artists definitely don't stick with either the given prompts or with the pen and ink, and they just sort of do something every day within their own sort of realm. So this year I've decided, I'm not going to do 31 days, I'm only going to do the weekdays and give myself a break on the weekends. But pen and ink isn't exactly my go-to medium, so I'm also going to veer slightly out and give myself a little more lenience there. I also want to be a little more practical this year, and rather than ending up with a bunch of pages in a sketchbook, I want to end up with some things that I'm going to be able to use. All along the wall behind me are IKEA bookshelves with the storage cubes full of all my arts and crafts supplies. And I started off with all the little bins being white because I thought that would be nice that they would all match and I wouldn't have to worry about it. I didn't like any of the actual colors that they came in, so just sticking with white seemed nice and clean and simple and easy. But that ended up having a couple problems because, first of all, storing art and craft supplies in white bins means that eventually your white bins are not terribly white, and second of all, I like color, and it's been a little boring to me. So this year I'm going to do all of my Inktober illustrations on the fronts of all of my storage bins. I'm going to do a different illustration each day on one of the bins. But like I said, I want color, I want excitement, so I'm going to be using acrylic this year. That sort of sticks with that permanence, like pen and ink, but I'll be able to get the color and it'll just stick better to these bins. One of the things I liked about having that prompt list was that it was a little bit of a challenge. I didn't have complete and utter free reign to just make whatever I wanted, which makes sense when you're trying to make money off of your art. You don't always just get to make whatever you want. But it was also kind of a help because some days, as an artist, you're sitting there and you want to make something and you just don't know what. And I happen to have a bunch of these little dry erase dice because I'm a major nerd who plays D&D and collects dice, so why not? So my process this year is going to be rolling this dice first. So I labeled the first 4 sides with Princess, Star Wars, Fantasy, and Pixar, and then I labeled 2 sides Disney because that covers a lot of bases. So my first step each day is going to be rolling this dice to see what my basic theme for that day is going to be. Then for each of those categories, I made a list of possible subjects, and for each of those categories, I've made a different dice, picking 6 of those subjects to go onto each side. And once one of those has been rolled, I will erase that one and pick another item from that list. So since today is October 1st, let's get started with our first subject roll. So that gave us Disney, so next I'm going to roll my Disney dice and see which Disney character I'm going to be drawing. Mary Poppins it is! Let's get started. I learned last year that all these speed paints are going to get very time consuming, so I'm going to skip over all of my pencil sketches. I was a little concerned about bleeding since the material that these boxes are covered in is kind of thin, and I thought that the material might soak up the paint in the water. It doesn't seem to be too bad, but I'm not too concerned about that because I think that once I have them all done and arranged, I will go back in and I might paint in some backgrounds with some colors that will sort of tie everything together since there is such a random quality to these. And since I'm using such a large list of different intellectual properties, I'm going to try and put every one of them into sort of my own style so that they will kind of all hopefully work somewhat well together. And I also plan on trying to keep my color palettes fairly consistent through all the different properties, so even if I come across 2 things that the characters might have 2 completely different reds, I'm going to try and use the same red as often as I can. That way they will all sort of look cohesive and finished together. Because the end goal is that I'm going to be displaying all of these at once on the craft wall in my studio space, so I want them to work well together. I am going for a practical end product with my Inktober this year. I'm going to keep my shading and my rendering fairly simple and straightforward, a little more on the cartoony side since I have so many cartoon properties on this entire set of lists. So even though I'm using the live action Mary Poppins here, obviously because I've always been obsessed with the Jolly Holiday dress, I am making her definitely much more cartoony with a Sharpie outline. Because another thing I learned the last couple years of Inktober is that this gets very, very time consuming. Things come up and you don't expect them, so scheduling can get kind of crazy. So it just makes sense to me to keep this as simple of a project as possible. The point is to create something, not to create a masterpiece every day. I'll also probably be uploading at least some of these to my Instagram and TikTok accounts, so if you want to see a little more detail or some still shots, be sure to check those out, and they will all be linked in the description box down below. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time.